Welcome back to Preparing for the Unexpected. Today we are talking with Yusuf Ukaye about how we start our business continuity programs, especially when we've got the honor of being told to get it started. Yusuf, great first segment, lots of information in there. Um, I'd like to start off asking now, well, now that I have this information, I have some of the things that you talked about in place. What's my first action? Where do I start off? What do I start looking at now?
The first thing you've got to do is to ensure that roadmap is in place and people have agreed to what their roles and responsibilities are. So have we actually got deputies as well as business unit owners for plans? So you might not even have plans in place just yet, but you've had the conversation about completing a BIA, business impact analysis. You've been able to articulate all the relevant areas of the business impact analysis. And you've also been able to articulate the importance of all the operational risks that have been defined, anything with a negative connotation attached to that. So you could have the loss of people, the loss of data, the loss of systems, the loss of utilities. So to give you a good example is, does your BIA stipulate what your strategy will be if people working from home cannot work from home because there's an internet outage? And on top of that, there's a power outage. What are your strategies? Have you been able to articulate that risk in your BIA? That is a good foundation to start off with. And what I also want to link in is once you've created your BIA with your various teams, is to report on it. Keep that good governance behind it, and then to articulate that and extrapolate that key information into a plan. But your plan could either be it is going to be subjective to you as an individual. So the organization you work for could be highly regulated, where you might have a 56-page plan or a 100-page plan because of the detail that you have in this plan. But the most important thing is, are you able to use that document
Mm,
if there is an invocation required? So if you still have a workplace recovery center, which I believe some organizations still have that system and that method in place, are you able to turn to whichever page that is? Most often you won't be able to, because you will need to be working in pretty much in sync with what you've been asked to with the SLAs that you've been given. And also in relation to how has this been validated. So again, going back to clause 8 of the ISO standard 22301, how well have we articulated we're able to actually be capable to carry this out? We might be certified to the ISO 22301 standard. We may be aligning to it, but what have we actually proven in the last 12 months that this can actually work? What I also think is really good for organizations, and I've had uh, the unique uh, pleasure of being in that environment, is organizations that have also certified and to align with the standard. So there have been organizations where I've had to ensure that within a year, we've at least covered 3 operational risks: loss of systems, the loss of people, and the loss of utilities. And what does that actually mean in layman's terms? And then there's that added element of what have we learned from it, the continuous improvement element, taking into account the plan, do, check, act methodology to link in with that. So what I've said there is pretty much a very high level mandatory piece of work that will support the BCMS. Yeah.
well, I know you mentioned the BIA, so for the record, for anyone who's going to write in and send me an email, we're not going to get into the pros and cons of a BIA, okay? Because I
I,
know I'll get something.
no, of course. I want to add something to that as well. The business impact analysis is a methodology and a process that is closely aligned with the standard, the ISO 22301 standard. So I
Mm,
am aware that it's a very subjective way of working down business continuity planning arrangements and strategies. So I'm sure that there are practitioners in the world who will have their say. And I think we're a broad church when it comes to how we go about protecting what is important to us, of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah.
The two things I want to ask about. The first one is you talked about when you've got your findings. So you've identified your critical processes and then everything that's needed to do that. Do you recommend aligning that with executive expectations so that that way you know you're on the right path and you don't show up a year later with an update or something and they're like, that's not what we were expecting.
Yeah, so this is a really good point that you're making, and a really good question to raise as well. The point is pretty much that once you've actually, you know, concluded an exercise, you have to then showcase this to your local forum. You might have an information security and risk forum, you might have a data privacy forum, you might have a committee forum or what a BC committee forum, and they'll be waiting to hear, well, what actually happened in this exercise? Did these people turn up? Were we better than we were last year? Type of thing. And the first area is learning. That's the first point that we need to take into account. So what have we learned? What can we get better at? What aren't we able to do? Why is the problem really good for us? And again, I'm using a reverse way of looking at issues to say, right, well, if we were to solve this solution, say within 3 months, we know what the payback's going to be. And then there's another element, which is escalating this to senior leadership and to demonstrate why we used maybe a certain piece of technology. It might be utilizing Teams, for example, or another platform to actually get our communication out. We might have ensured that we're able to train new people. So that saved us potentially the bottom line in terms of getting coordinators in where we didn't think we need to. So there's a split of sharing of responsibilities there. And then finally, in terms of understanding what new risks might be on the horizon too. And I think at that point, when we're actually escalating these pieces of learning to our senior leaders, they get a grasp of the importance of business continuity because, as you may well know, some risks could actually rear their head to become strategic risks,
Mhm.
which could potentially impact the lifeblood of the business. Yeah.
Or some of the findings actually help contribute to the mitigation of other strategic risks.
Of course. So, for example, a simple phishing workshop led by corporate IT. So, lunch and learn, 50 people turn up at 12 o'clock, and then all of a sudden, for those people who have attended, they've been able to successfully ensure that that email has actually gone through to the right mailbox, and we haven't actually clicked on that link. That could well be a ransomware attack, and a potential nation state attack, and how many organizations have fallen foul of those links. And all it takes is somebody to just, neglect what they've been advised by the guys and girls in corporate IT who have tried to support that learning. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, is roadmap. So I'm guessing that I'm building a roadmap for how long and what should it contain?
Well, as we agreed before, Alex, the BCMS or the BCM, as it is for many organizations, the BC program, as it is for many organizations, is not a one hit wonder. It's not a 12-month program. It lasts for much longer than that. And what we want to do is we want to put into place what we're actually going to be doing every quarter, every month, and who's going to be involved. So a roadmap will be very different to each organization because of the availability of people who are going to be there or not there. I'll give you a good example. If you're going to be organizing a major incident exercise with strategic leaders, that's probably going to take up to 4 months to plan ahead because there's no way that one person's going to do it on their own. You're going to have about 3 or 4 coordinators, and you're also going to need to ensure that the event is going to be supported potentially by an external consultancy as well, because the technical know-how you would need in that environment. Then you've also got the areas where you'll need to sit down with people and talk about why business continuity is important. So you've got the workshops, the virtual workshops, and the collateral that you need to also to put one side to actually develop. You've also then got to set aside time to ensure that you're able to solve problems. So it might be the case that you're working for a global organization and you're on call and you have a family life. So how do you juggle the two? And you feel passionate about both. So again, the frame of mind is really key. And I want to bring something else in, Alex, which I believe is really important, is the frame of mind of the resilience professional in building a successful program from scratch. Um, we have lots of organizations that evangelize soft skills. And I think that's the way to go. How are we as resilience professionals ensuring that building our programs, we ourselves are psychological safe, in a psychological safe, as it were. We have so much going on. So I'll give you a good example. During the recent Israeli-Palestinian conflict, that was a lot to take in for professionals who are responding to some really horrific scenes, especially from those colleagues who are both in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, in Gaza, and in the West Bank. So again, how are people thinking as responders in terms of what they're seeing? Who's going to pat them on the shoulder? And that was one of the first things I was thinking about in the organization I worked for, in terms of the conversation that we're having and the support um, and the understanding of the importance of the types of incidents that we have to face. So I think that's really key as well to bring in. How do we respond to trauma personally and professionally? Yeah.
Well, let's stay on that one. I'm new to the industry and I've been told to build this program. What you just went through, you're building a roadmap, and then the external factors that are happening in the globe right now, that's a lot to take on. How do I deal with that? Because that is so much. And most times we are, and I don't know if this is the case for you, but we are a department of one. And that
Yeah.
is so overwhelming.
And this is why I think, and I've shared this with somebody in the industry previously, that we are by nature philanthropic by nature. As individuals, we give. We don't take as resilience professionals. We are the givers. We give our time, we give our understanding, we give our knowledge, we provide support. And what we do is provide solutions. We don't sometimes realize, but we're providing strategies and solutions day by day. Think about LinkedIn, for example. How many times on LinkedIn do we see people sharing stories within the resilience profession and nobody's paying us? We're doing it because, and I can name many, many people, and you're one of them, who will share quite actively what's actually going on in the world. There is one individual that comes to mind that shares a phenomenal amount of information on logistics. And again, it's our nature. And if someone who's just literally come into the industry and they're faced with that, the first thing I think about is the support that our human resource department needs to provide, the
Mm.
support that our immediate colleagues within the greater team can ask and provide that. So if we've done a 10-hour shift, who's going to provide that leadership to say, go home, have a rest. You've been in this incident room, being the logist, you need to take a break. It's making sure that you've got that people to stand up for you. And I also think it's really key, because we will then look back in hindsight and who our allies were in those times of need, who valued us rather than needing us. There's a big difference in terms of those two, because when we're building that program, there's a big difference in just needing business continuity, but valuing it is on a different level. And I think that's where, the superstars, come out. And that's what I see as us as business continuity professionals globally. We're seen as valued contributors to the success of the business.
That's a nice sentiment. And thank you very much for your comment there too. I appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to touch on is you mentioned stakeholders. Having been in project and program management myself, a stakeholder is anyone with a vested interest in what you're doing, right? Well, if you're in business continuity, that's almost everybody because you're doing it for the organization. So how do I go about identifying the stakeholders I really need to reach out to and have a relationship with?
Sure. So I believe that a racing matrix helps a lot. So people are responsible, accountable, um, people who will be able to inform you on various subjects. And I think one of the things that also supports the racing matrix is we can pinpoint for projects who we're able to talk a certain language with. So if people just need to be informed, we know that a certain limited time will be provided for them. But if they're responsible for a business continuity plan that covers quite a wide region, let's just say Singapore, the Philippines, Taiwan, and China, how much time are we actually giving to them? Because they're actually going to be thinking about you as well as you thinking about them. So they may have, and a big thing for the stakeholder management is to understand the change management within those stakeholders. So you think about an organization that's going through mergers and acquisitions, and there's probably 3 on the horizon. So an organization's got a wealth of money coming in, and they've got 3 or 4 acquisitions up and lined. They've got project managers that have been contracted in, but you're the permanent business continuity manager, and all of a sudden you've got 3 project managers who are working on a specific area to bring in an organization. So first of all, are they working down an agile methodology? Are they also being able to ensure that operational excellence has been implemented into the organization? Am I aware of what that actually means to my BCMS? Possibly. So again, how worldly are we aware of the expectations of stakeholders who just arrived? So again, a bit like an incident, all of a sudden it happens, and how are we able to respond in the time that's being given to us? Yeah.
On that note, we've come to the end of our second segment. We are talking about starting a business program from scratch with Yusuf Ukaye today, and we will be right back. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.